Шановні гості, сподіваюся, всіх був гарний обід. Наразі ми переходимо до
Dear
нашої
participants, hopefully you have enjoyed your lunch,
сесії, яка
and now it's
стосується
time for our fourth session.
говорили
It's a
про
final
сьогодення.
session. Before
Потім
that,
сесія
we
про
talked
accession
about
2014
the
року.
contemporary
Нагадаю,
situation, about
що
our
євроінтеграція на
past
шляху
history,
Європейського
but
Союзу,
now we are going to talk about our future on our path
знову ж таки ми
towards the European
про це дуже
integration.
багато
Let's
говорили,
discuss the
і хочемо
steps that
нагадати,
we
що
still have to make.
політично і економічно
Let me
ЄС
remind you that
власне
historically and
митниця,
economically, the
і
European
законні
Union
економічні та
is
валютні
based
союзи
on the
повинні
customs
формувати
union,
процес
and the currency
інтеграції.
union and economic union joined
Щодо
later.
подальшої інтеграції. І
So it
при
is an
чудовій
opportunity for us to
наголосив на початку
find
першої
the
сесії
entry
сьогоднішнього
point
звернення
for the
грецького монарха
integration.
Качка,
As
коли
mentioned by Taras Kachka,
який каже
this is a
про
real
ми всі
doorway for
повинні
Ukraine.
розуміти, що
And
Союз
in terms
прив'язаний
of
до трьох
the
атрибутів.
customs union, we can
Перше,
say that it
вільний
consists of
торгівля,
three main
забезпечує одного
characteristics.
кордону
First,
з
common
Польщею,
customs
Угорщиною
territory.
і
This means that
Словаччиною,
there will be no borders with Poland,
контроль
the
і
Slovak Republic,
відбудеться
the Czech Republic, and Hungary.
державного кордону не
Until we
буде.
join Schengen zone, there will be still
І Андрій Марченко, міністр фінансів,
the border
Україна стане східним
crossing
кордоном
points, but there will be no customs offices.
Другий атрибут митного
Then,
союзу
the second characteristic of the customs union is the common customs tariff and common regulation of the external economic activity. Our law on the customs tariffs will be invalidated after Ukraine has joined the EU, and we will be guided by the common regulation. And the third characteristic is common customs rules. This means that the customs code of the union will apply to us as well. During this session, we'll listen to the leading Ukrainian and international expert, Mr. Alexander Moskalenko from the Ministry of Finance. He represents the Department for Customs Policy. Mr. Kostidis Klinaks, the representatives of Director General in charge of customs issues. He's online. Then Mr. Vitanis Charles, a key international expert from EU for PFM, and he is here in the conference. Then Mr. Shrunus Sujan is international expert on customs legislation, working on the EU for PFM project. He is also online, and distinguished Ms. Tatiana Chimruk, the head of the working group that worked on the draft customs code of Ukraine. She's also online, and she will join us a little bit later during the session. Dear speakers, let me remind you our timeline. You will have up to 10 minutes for your talks. There will be no Q&A session. However, if anyone has some burning questions, we will give you an opportunity to ask them. And let us start with Mr. Alexander Moskalenko. Dear Alexander, you worked on the draft customs code, and there were over 100 experts altogether from Ministry of Finance, Reform Support Team, Customs Service, EU for PFM project, and so on. How did you manage to coordinate this activity? By the way, the government has already approved this draft. Of course, we still have to work on it with the European Commission and with the public. But what happened since it was approved by the government in August last year, and what are the next steps? Over.
Дякую, Владиславе.
Thank you, Vladislav. Good afternoon, dear participants. The customs code has been mentioned many times today, especially during the political and strategic session. the start of our event. And of course, it's true that first we have to submit it to the parliament. I'm not going to uh, dwell on the details of its development, but in fact, there were 15 expert teams comprised of the representatives of the Ministry of Finance, Customs Service, and various projects. Then the expert teams received the support from the European partners. Some representatives of customs offices from various European countries also participated in this exercise. Therefore, we completed the draft and we published it on the website of the Ministry of Finance in late August 2025. So it was an official publication. And what is next, basically? This is the procedure under the 29th chapter. We have to, in April last year, we had a session in Brussels. There we presented our customs legislation, and as a result of legislation screening, we received a range of proposals and recommendations. So now we know in what parts we have to update Ukrainian legislation in order to achieve the full alignment with the European acquis. The new customs code will put a full stop in this long process of legislative amendments. Afterwards, our legislation will be fully compliant with the European legislation. We engaged nearly 150 experts, in fact. That's pretty much. And we received an official opinion of the European Commission. And according to this opinion, generally, our code, our draft is aligned with the acquis. However, there are still some issues, and the partners brought them to our attention. Now we have to finalize this work. Then we also had some meetings and consultations with the companies, with the business, and Mr. Marchenko has mentioned today that there were several events, including roundtables and working group meetings. Each of them lasted up to 2.5 hours. So this means that the consultations these consultations lasted many working days. Hopefully, this will reduce the time that the Parliament needs for the discussion. I'm not going to elaborate on that. I think that Tatiana will provide you with more details. Regarding the key ideas, I'll start with the end. Actually, this customs code consists of local chapters included into Ukrainian customs code, and partially it's the document that is based on the UCC, and it's not a translation, of course, but there are some provisions included into the code. Those are provisions regarding the interaction with the member countries. I don't want to waste time. That's why I'll just answer the basic question. What's gonna change for the business? As you already know, 12 European integration laws have already been adopted. The authorization for the economic operators will be furthered, and the customs code of Ukraine will be fully aligned with the UCC, and the companies' requirements in our customs code are already the same as in the European code. We have to monitor the implementation. Of course, we have to monitor the companies to evaluate whether the company meets the criteria. But if the company has once met the criteria, it won't have to undergo any additional verifications. And we plan that the previous initiatives will be implemented as planned. Hopefully, the transition thus will be really smooth. There will be perhaps some new simplifications like entry declarations. Thus, the capacity of the system will be expanded. However, our basic objective is to keep the existing requirements. Thus, the companies won't be afraid of this transition of the switch to the new code. Then there are some plans for the second stage after Ukraine has become the EU member. Some laws will be invalidated because in Europe all authorizations should be registered on a central level, and then the key thing will be as follows: the requirements, our requirements are already conformant with the European requirements. And then we will have the companies that are fully aligned that meet all the criteria. Then the customs service and the companies will have to accomplish a technical task. The companies will have to get new registration numbers, so to say, because the old registration numbers won't be used in the system any longer. So what am I talking about? Before Ukraine joins the EU, we will have to construct this bridge for our business to still no inconvenience. As of now, we are um, re rejecting some of our progressive, some of our advanced decisions. We reject the preliminary declarations, for instance, because we are going to use the common transit for the purposes of controlling the movement of goods. This means that that the IT system will have to work automatically after some period, and there will be no manual effort involved. So apart from the legislation, we will have to care of the IT system. So we will adopt the new customs code, we will adopt the secondary legislation, but the biggest challenge will be related to the IT systems. You are all aware of challenges that we may face with, but Ukrainian customs service is very advanced in terms of technology, and our IT system has to be simply ready for this transitional period. In terms of the secondary legislation, well, it's the 19th of April today. It's 19th of March today, but on the 19th of April, the transitional periods will be over. Maybe we will need some deferrals, we'll need some time for some additional time for registration, but I think we will cope. All the rest other issues related to authorization of customs brokers can provoke some concerns, some issues with the parliament. If there are any questions, I am ready to answer them on behalf of the Minister of Finance, and I'm sure that the colleagues from the Customs Service are actively working on finalization of the draft customs code. We are planning to start the official procedure of approval in March. Hopefully, in the end of April, the draft will be submitted to the Parliament, and afterwards, of course, we will accompany the procedure of adoption at all stages. Thank you. Over to Vladislav. Thank you, Alexander. Am I right in my understanding that all companies that already work under simplified procedure that were granted the status of AEO will be technically re-registered. So the new registration numbers will be attributed to them, but they won't have to undergo the repeated screening. Well, what do we have in fact? We, let's say, monitor a company, and we know that the company does not commit any violations. Everything is okay with this company. And then, according to the EU rules, we will have to make a decision on granting this company an authorization under the European legislation. If everything has been verified, then we can, the customs service can make a decision on granting the AEO status. And this company should receive the EORI code, which will be a unified code for everyone operating in the European system. So thus, the company will receive the European registration. This means that the company has to get this EURI code, and it will be re-registered smoothly without repeated screening. Dear colleagues, please keep this in mind. If you have already undergone all the registration procedures, you won't have to experience them again.
What are the main challenges for the state authorities when it comes to the implementation of the new customs code? First of all, public authorities shall ensure capacity of the state customs service to be able to implement all the provisions. It depends on the Ministry of Finance. This is the timely preparation of the regulatory acts. But of course, the key point here is that customs officials shall be properly trained and shall be ready. And on the other hand, our economic operators shall be aware of the new rules and be able to use new software products. So the main challenge here is to ensure proper training of the state customs service and other bodies who are involved in the border control for them to be able to apply new rules. Thank you, Alexander. For all who are present here today, I'd like to share a secret. Alexander was one of the developers of the current code, customs code of Ukraine. And I know that there are different opinions about the current customs code, but I worked with this custom code for 5 years as a declarant, and I can say that this document is not that bad, and in some parts it is rather progressive, and I hope that the new customs code will be even better than the current customs code and will be applied by business. Thank you, Alexander. Thank you, Vladislav. We have a lot of people here who were involved in the development of two codes already, so we have the whole team of people here. And I'm talking to you about like a project manager. Well then, now I would like to give floor to our online guest. This is Kastidis. Are you with us?
Hello, yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hello. Good afternoon, dear Kasitis. Nice to meet you. Thank you for joining us to this forum. It's a great honor and representative of DJ Taksut take part on our event. It's very appreciated. And as I said on the first session, we have a very good level of cooperation with DJ Taksut, and I want just to ask you opinion of DJ Taksut concerning draft custom code that we sent last year and that was evaluated by DJ Taksut, by expert of DJ Taksut. What is your opinion? And please share it with us.
Thank you. Good afternoon, all. First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Suvorov for organizing this customs platform and inviting us to this event. And let me thank also our colleagues from the State Customs Service and
I'm
Ministry of
sorry,
Finance of Ukraine.
Kastitis, the sound is very bad. Can you make it better?
Yeah, I will try.
Not so much. It's still very bad.
What? And about now? Still?
Okay, let's try.
Okay, I will try to speak louder. So yes, good afternoon all, and indeed it's a great pleasure to attend this event with the colleagues. And I wanted, first of all, I wanted to say thank for the State Customs Service and the Minister of Finance of Ukraine for excellent cooperation and progress in the field of customs. This also includes collaboration and consultation with the European Commission services in preparation of the draft legislation, specifically the preparation of a draft of the new customs code of Ukraine. As our director has already emphasized in the morning session, it's important to adopt it as quickly as possible, the new customs code in alignment with the UCC Union Customs Code, accompanied by broad stakeholder consultation. We hope that the new code will be adopted before summer holiday. Of course, we understand the timeline is quite challenging, but our experts are available for consultations and are ready to assist in the legislative procedure in the Verkhovna Rada. After legislation, another important area is customs IT systems. Ukraine must develop the digital customs systems necessary for the implementation of the EU legislation in customs domain, while also ensuring the necessary budgetary and human resources for this task. It's also important for Ukraine to further strengthen the administrative capacity of the State Customs Service, ensuring its effective functioning. What I just mentioned are very important conditions for Ukraine to join the EU and meet the requirements of the EUT set out in Chapter 29, Customs Union. In short, the conditions for EU membership in the area of customs and taxation are as follows. First, full legislative and procedural alignment with the EU Customs and Tax Acquis. Second, adequate capacity to implement and enforce the EU tax and customs legislation and cooperate with other member states and the Commission. This includes the capacity to collect customs duties contributing to the EU budget. And third, condition availability of IT systems to support the implementation of the EU tax and customs acquis and exchange information with other member states and the Commission. I would like to highlight that Ukraine as a candidate country must make significant progress in each of these areas before concluding accession negotiation on customs chapter. And this process will be monitored by the EU through so-called closing benchmarks, which set out the progress that Ukraine needs to achieve for each chapter of the EU acquis. And the closing benchmarks for Chapter 29 will be presented to Ukrainian authorities and explained in detail during the explanatory session next week. In conclusion, I would like to encourage authorities to continue their work and make rapid progress in implementing the tasks necessary for Ukraine's integration into the EU. And our experts stand ready to continue to provide assistance in drafting legislation, developing digital customs system, and implementing capacity building measures. Thank you.
Thank you, Kastytis, for your comprehensive response for our questions. And I just would like to clarify what further step concerning evaluation of custom legislation should we wait from European Commission. I mean, I hope we will submit draft custom code to Parliament in the middle of the April. Then I hope it will be adopted in 2026 in first reading. And then it will be some changes in as probably as it usually is in Ukraine. Before first and second reading, we have a lot of proposal from members of the parliament to the text of custom code. And then finally, Verkhovna Rada will adopt it hopefully in second reading, and then will be the law. Will European Commission again evaluate new text of custom code adopted in second reading?
Thank you, Vlad. Can I pass this question to my colleague also, who is attending this session, Verle? Please.
Sorry, thank you, Kastytis. Now it's better probably. And I hope you hear me very far away in Kiev, and let me know if you don't hear me. I would like to add maybe a few aspects to this question, because of course there is I mean we are very I think the draft and the amendments of the customs legislation are very timely done, but obviously this will not be the end of it, as you have mentioned, Mr. Suvorov. This text will probably will be amended, will contain some amendment, and will at the end of the day not be fully aligned with the UCC yet. As was mentioned already this morning by my director, also the Union Customs Code itself is undergoing a review. So we will also need to see how this internal review of the EU customs legislation impacts then also the future alignment that has to be done. But as mentioned by my director this morning, obviously we will have detailed consultations and information sessions with Ukraine Customs Service the moment that the text is stable, and when we will be able to see the real impact. Also, I think what is important for the whole process is to ensure the continuity, of course, always the business continuity of all the changes in view of EU accession. Considering that at the moment of EU accession, it will be the Union Customs Code that will be applicable in Ukraine, and not anymore the National Customs Code. So we will have to look at all the steps that are made in order to achieve this alignment step by step. So we will need to look at it step by step, what needs to be done, with the purpose of also ensuring the continuity of the business, the continuity of authorization, what also was mentioned by Mr. Moskalenko just before. Thank you.
Thank you, Virli. Thank you, Kastytis. Thank you for joining us today to our forum. It's a great honor to see you and hear you, and I hope see you soon in Brussels. And now I want to go to our speaker. It's Vytenis, and it's a great friend of Ukraine. He helped us within CTS phase 4, and then he helped us within CTS phase 5, and now he is helping us within CTS phase 6. So it's very good, and we appreciate for support of you for PPM project, of CPMA, and for you personally. And in scope of our today's meeting, it's IO and CTS, new custom code. Please, I know you have a presentation. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much for opportunity to participate in this custom platform today. Just I would like to try to show my presentation, the first slide, but probably it doesn't. Oh, okay, it works. So if you agree, firstly, let's talk about the EU approach on the role of the customs. Until recently, the role of the customs consisted of the collecting customs duties and indirect taxes and import. On the other hand, the facilitation of legitimate trade requires simple and standard customs procedures and processes. We already discussed today about authorized economic operators. The use of information and communication technologies has become a key element in ensuring trade facilitation and, at the same time, the effectiveness of customs controls. We talked about the new computerized transit system and CTS today as well. So these changing conditions and requirements have transformed the role of the customs authorities, giving them a leading role within the supply chain of international trade and making them a catalyst for national and business competitiveness. So it's the main reason why we talk to business today. Okay. But the new customs code is just the first step. This is the list of the systems shared by DigiTaxud. As you probably know, DigiTaxud shared with the Ministry of Finance and the State Customs Service the official letter providing guidance for the development of mandatory digital customs systems required for the implementation of EU customs legislation of Customs Code, Delegated Act, and Implementing Act. Only one system, new computerized transit system, has been developed and successfully passed conformance testing with DigiTaxud and is fully compliant with the UCC requirements. According to the experience of EU member states, the scope of work is extensive. For example, the development of the new functionality of the automated export system, it's the third system of the list, no, second system. Development of the new functionality of the automated export system and functionality of centralized clearance for import took more than 2 years, requiring additional resources. For this reason, most EU member states use outsourcing, most EU member states use services of IT companies. Some of the systems require conformance testing with the DigiTaxud. For example, conformance testing of the same automated export system demands more than 1 year. This roadmap shows the target phases. Firstly, adoption of the new Customs Code of Ukraine based on the Union Customs Code, and we expect completion of this task by the end of August 2026. I'm an optimist. Secondly, development of the related secondary legislation based on the regulations issued by the EU Commission. We believe in completion of this task by the second half of 2027. And finally, development of the new core UCC customs declaration, clearance, and risk management systems according to the new UCC-based customs code of Ukraine. So we have 3 phases, and it sounds like the 3 musketeers. If those 3 musketeers are ready by the end of 2027, the new UCC-based customs code of Ukraine will come into force by the end of 2027. This means that you can start trial operation of the core IT systems at the national level and be ready for pre-conformance and conformance testing with the Digitax suit before EU accession. Probably that's it at the moment. Just let confirm that EU for PFM is ready to support all those activities.
Дякую. Thank you, Vytenis, for this comprehensive presentation of work that should be done in IT. We fully understand that IT is crucial for EU accession for us, for custom perspective. There are different approach in different countries of European Union. It's outsourcing, it's self-made IT system like in Germany. So now with the Ministry of Finance, let's say on our way how to combine these 2 approach in better way. And from me, I just want to ask you one question so that we fully understand that subject of EU Commission examination of Ukraine, readiness to become a part of custom union will not limit it only with the legislation or IT system for it. Commission will also examine capacity and capabilities of the State Customs Service of Ukraine for proper implementation of legal basis and protect single market from customs offenses. What could you recommend Ukraine to increase this capacity?
Capacity building of the Ukrainian State Customs Service is very important. EU member states expect to have a reliable partner. EU for PFM supports activities in human resources, anti-corruption and other areas. I would like to pay your attention on the customs investigation power. The European Commission has issued guidance and recommendations for candidate countries. According to the EU customs blueprints, the aim is to develop an effective and efficient customs service capable of detecting, preventing, and investigating fraud and preparing cases for the prosecutions of offenders. What did EU enlargement report say about Ukraine in this area? The answer is following. It is important that the customs authority is granted with adequate enforcement powers and has the capacity to be directly engaged in intelligence gathering activities and contribute to pre-trial investigation in cases of smuggling of goods. I'm from Lithuania. Lithuanian customs has criminal intelligence and criminal investigation power. It works efficient in both areas, in fighting with smuggling and in fighting with corruption as well.
thank you so much for this answer because it's something that we like to build in Ukraine customs, and I think everyone know regarding a national revenue strategy till 2030, and national revenue strategy also indicate measures concerning empower of the state customs service of Ukraine with investigative power, and I hope in nearest future we will I mean Ukraine, will fulfill this measure. So thank you very much, Vitanis, for your intervention. And now I would like to invite our guest from online. Dear Sharunas, are you with us?
Yes, hope you can see and hear me.
Yeah, we see you and we hear you. So you are international expert of EU4PFM project, and you help us a lot of time when we're trying to understand how certain provision of Union Custom Code should be implemented on practice. You are very in very details answer to our questions. So thank you very much for the support, and you help us with the text of the new custom code, and I know also that you have a presentation. So the floor is yours, dear Sharunas.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stovarov. It's a great honor, a pleasure to me to speak at this very important and interesting event. And now, can you see my slides?
We see it. It's okay.
Okay, yes. So first slide, I think I can skip because colleagues already explained these steps which should follow the adoption of the new customs code of Ukraine. And we can go to the next slide, please. So, as you already know, very soon we will have the new Union Customs Code adopted, and its application will start. Some of the provisions will be applied very soon, some provisions later, but definitely Ukraine will accede to the EU when that code will be applied, and that's important that the development of Ukrainian customs legislation will continue, and for that it's necessary to monitor very closely all developments related to the implementation of the EU customs reform. So I mean legal developments, IT developments, organizational developments, because as you know, we will have the EU Customs Authority, and knowing what is going on in the EU to plan and implement national measures to maintain high level of alignment of Ukrainian customs legislation with the EU acquis, and that is very important to ensure it until the very last moment, because that would allow your businesses and customs officials to switch to the new legal framework very smoothly. It's also important to plan IT developments and organizational measures necessary to be prepared for the direct application of the acquis from the date of accession, and also raising awareness among the trade and general public related to the EU customs reform and its implementation, because as you know, preparation for the EU membership is like a chasing of running train. What we have now will change. It is also, I think, important to use possible forms of cooperation between the Ukrainian Customs Authority with the EU Customs Authority, which will start its operation rather soon. Next slide, please. Vytenis already spoke about the capacity building, which is very important. And as regards the powers of enforcement, I would say that it's really important to ensure that the customs authority has all necessary powers, because otherwise the cooperation with customs authorities of the EU member states would be rather complicated, because the customs service then would have to pass some activities or some requests to other authorities, and other authorities are not always well familiar with the customs legislation and customs business, and that would decrease the level of efficiency. It's, I think, also important to take into account that capacity building measures require sufficient time and funding to implement, so these measures shall be planned and implemented well in advance of the start date of enforcement of these provisions. I can say that in Lithuania, last years before the EU membership were very productive, because we could achieve many tasks which were difficult in the beginning, and so we received all necessary powers for investigation, for carrying out pretrial investigations, and also to operate mobile teams of the customs authorities, which are also very important because internal borders have to be controlled as well, but not in traditional manner like you are doing today. And that's why it's very important to have these powers to apply mobile controls. Next slide, please. Then EU membership negotiations. As you know, there are other countries which already negotiating EU membership, and I think that it's important for Ukrainian colleagues to follow these negotiations, to collect information about these negotiations in order to adjust Ukrainian negotiation position, to identify most important derogations, specific and transitional measures which might be necessary because of situation in Ukraine. And these measures which are indicated in the draft new customs code, I would say that these transitional measures are fake transitional measures, because these measures will be applied until the day of accession, but real transitional measures are those which are applied starting from the date of accession, and allows the new EU member state to apply for a certain period of time some specific derogations, maybe specific duty reliefs or other measures which are important for the acceding country. Next slide, please. Then development of national customs legislation which will be applied after the accession to the EU. That is also important and time-consuming process, because first you have to define your legal architecture, how your national legislation will look after the accession to the EU, when the EU customs legislation will be applied directly, and only some measures will be applied on the national basis. So you will have to replace the customs code, which will be adopted, I hope, this year, with a new customs law, which will be hopefully much smaller than the code which is discussed today. and a lot of national legal acts which are duplicating the customs union acquis will have to be repealed. All international agreements of Ukraine which are duplicating the EU acquis or agreements concluded between the EU and third countries will also have to be denounced. Next slide, please. Okay, so that was all what I wanted to say, and if you have questions, I'm ready to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, dear Sharunas, for such comprehensive presentation of further steps that should be done from Ukrainian side. I have just one question to you. We know that you already work in Lithuanian customs for many years before EU accession, and you should remember challenges that Lithuanian custom face with the first year after accession to European Union. And what were these challenges and obstacles, and what changes we in Ukraine should be prepared for, on your mind?
Yes, there were many challenges, and I think that the most difficult was the application or interoperability with the EU IT systems. Together with Lithuania, other nine countries joined the EU, and the workload of central EU system increased so significantly that there were breakdowns or interruptions of these systems, and only after several days the work gradually was, how to say, normalized. And of course, these challenges were very important to adjust to the application of IT systems which are applied in the EU. And now, as you know, there are much more systems to be used after the accession, and you should be prepared for that these difficulties can arise. Another issue was, of course, preparation for the direct application of the EU legislation, and I think that you should also try to ensure high quality of translations of the EU customs legislation, which will be applied directly, because otherwise, if the quality will be bad, it would be very difficult to apply these legal acts directly. Training, of course, is also very important. Now, remote and other remote training and other possibilities can be used. At that time, when we joined the EU, normally we had live seminars, trainings, and of course we had to carry out a lot of training activities, and it was difficult because at the same time we had to work with the legal acts, with IT systems, and of course last year it was extremely difficult, but we managed, and I'm sure that Ukrainian colleagues will manage as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your answer, dear Sharunas. We have a lot of work in future after submitting draft of the custom code to the parliament. We expect a lot of working group and a lot of debates concerning certain provision of this draft law, and we very hope and rely on your support and your expertise. Thank you so much, Sharunas. І тепер я хотів би перейти до нашого наступного спікеру, перлиди
Thank you very much, Sharunas. And now let me switch to our next speaker, the jewel of our final session. This is Mr. Tana. Mr. Tana, you are the head of the working group representing the civil society. Mr. Moskalenko, the representative Minister of Finance, have already mentioned today that there were nearly 60 meetings of the working groups. Please let us know what were the main conclusions drawn upon those meetings, what was positive, what was challenging, and what has to be fixed. Thank you. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Happy to welcome you, Mr. Vladislav, and all other partners, representatives of business and civil society present at the customs platform today. First and foremost, I'd like to say that personally, I work today in the European Parliament. I'm in Brussels now, so I'm streaming from Brussels, and here I can directly witness the legislative process within the walls of the European Parliament. Regarding the customs code, it's the first time, I think, when the civil society and business were engaged in the development process from the very beginning. So we worked on this huge legal act. We started this work even before it was submitted to the parliament, and of course before it was adopted. This is an unprecedented achievement. I think that such an approach proved to be very efficient. Our working group was set up by an order of the government, and our function was to hold the respective consultations. 15 representatives of sectoral business associations and some federations were invited to participate in this working group. We had representatives of the American Commerce Chamber, for instance, and there were also representatives of the Ministry of Finance and some individual customs experts. During the kickoff meeting, we tried to understand what it means to hold consultations. Does it mean to propose amendments to the body of the draft, or maybe something else was implied? And during this first meeting, they agreed that we, as representatives of Ukrainian business and Ukrainian society, will be the users of this text, and we have to study this text. If we have any questions, we should ask them. We have to compare this text with the Union Customs Code and the respective implementation regulations. I will say immediately that this draft embodies not only Regulation 952, but also other implementation regulations 2447, 2446, 1186, 608, and so on. Part of them has already been implemented in our customs code. For instance, the majority of provisions regarding the intellectual property.
So we've decided that there will be a responsible person from the working group covering a specific chapter, and 3 times a week we've had meetings since October, and since the assessment mission from our European partners provided their conclusion after the new year, we continued our work till the last week. As for the structure of our section 3, title 3 and 9, this is fully in line with the UCC. Some of the titles are the parts which can be regulated at the national level. This is Title 14, the responsibility for the violation of customs rules, Title 15, customs bodies, etc. So I will briefly cover the novelties in these titles. Generally, I'd like to say that we've submitted a lot of proposals. Some of them have been taken into consideration. Others were defined as those that can be left aside. There will be the final meeting of the working group, and we will just provide our opinion about customs evaluation to preserve the balance. And we've had a lot of meetings covering this title, customs evaluation. I would like to thank Anton Melnik, representative of the American Chamber of Commerce of Ukraine, for great moderation and offering a lot of ideas for legislative activities, and would like to thank representatives of the State Customs Service, in particular Svetlana Yukhti, who also helped us a lot, and would like to thank Alexander Moskalenko from the Ministry of Finance for helping us to find this balance and to preserve the provisions which are not directly represented by the UCC, but that are in line with our international commitments. For example, veto agreements. As for the titles which are related to the national legislation, the main novelty of Title 14, this is the responsibility for violation of customs rules. This is the investigative powers provided to the State Customs Service, and it also mentions the institution of detectives as the National Anti-Corruption Bureau. As for the titles, for the status of the customs of officials, this is the possibility for pretrial investigation for the goods which are suspected of smuggling. So this covers several articles of the criminal code, and for this the special investigative body will be established as a part of the State Customs Service. I'd like to say that while working on the new customs code, we understood that a lot of provisions cannot come into force without amendments to other parts of legislation, like the tax code, criminal code, because there shall be amendment the criminal and procedure code when it comes about smuggling, and so the proceedings shall be defined, and also labor legislation, because there are other approaches to taxation. For example, when the person travels from one EU member state to another as a part of the business trip. The migration legislation, it even covers the status of resident and non-resident. So we have a lot still to do. The customs code cannot be applied separately from other legislative acts. So all our legislation shall be aligned with the EU acquis. This is a brief overview, and perhaps if you have some more specific questions, I will gladly answer them. Thank you. Thank you for your work as a part of the working group, and we are the representatives of the State Customs Service. The Ministry of Finance reconsider some of the provisions as a result of public discussions. Now we understand how they shall be amendment to be applicable in practice. And I have one question to you, Tatiana, and this is similar to the question to Alexander, but perhaps you haven't heard it. But when it comes about new customs code, what are the main challenges for the business you see in this process? Can you see in this process? And of course, when the text will be submitted to the parliament, our discussion will be brought to that level, and of course we can expect some amendments at that stage. But when it comes to the text that was developed as a part of our activities and the remarks and comments of the EU mission, to be honest, from political point of view, there will be no dramatic changes. Why is it so? Because I believe that around 85% legal institutions have already been implemented. For example, authorization to get simplifications, NCTS. Then, for example, the right to be heard. All these things that were rather painful in the past have already been introduced, and we see the increasing number of AOs that you've already discussed today in particular. So there will be no dramatic changes to the text, but a lot depends on several things. In every title of the Customs Code, and we need to not to forget about this, even in some chapters, there are several articles. These are the executive powers of the Cabinet of Ministers and the executive powers of the Ministry of Finance, just to implement a specific chapter. So, what is our tradition? So, that if there is some authorization, there shall be some order or procedure defined by the Cabinet of Ministers. But this will not be the case in the new code. So it is just mentioned that authorizations are granted. And then there is an article about executive powers that envisages that the Cabinet of Ministers, for example, shall issue some regulatory acts. That's why the successful implementation of this code will depend on the speed and quality of the adoption of different acts, for example, by the ministry. And when it comes to systems, of course, this is a two-lane road. So this is the interoperability, this is the harmonization of IT systems with the EU systems by the State Customs Service, and also the readiness of the business to be harmonized with the EU IT systems. For example, this electronic office shall be somehow changed. And of course, we should not forget about training. And here I am talking about training not only for our economic operators, but also for our officials. And a lot will depend on how State Customs Service and the Ministry of Finance will organize such training sessions both for economic operators and customs officers. And of course, we need to have enough time for business community and customs officials to be ready for the application of the customs code. One more thing, which is rather difficult for us, this is such definitions as reasonable periods, justified, grounded doubts. And for us, these are not that clear definitions because we are more precise in our legal formulations. That's why the implementation will depend on bad or good governance. So on how it will be, for example, implemented by customs bodies. And here a lot depends on the position of the Ministry of Finance and on the changes of the philosophy of perception of these norms by those who will execute them, in particular those involved in customs affairs. And I'd like to mention one more thing here that we should take into consideration, especially when it comes to the customs evaluation. The European legislative spirit defines not only UCC delegated and implementation acts, but also the decisions and rulings of the European Court of Justice, as well as guidelines and relevant compendiums. Before we become the fully fledged members of the EU, the decisions of the European Court of Justice won't be obligatory for our customs bodies. Compendiums and guidelines are also of recommendational nature. So we need to understand this and to openly say about this to our economic operators, that these provisions are not implemented in our new customs code. That's why we will need to take a step back from these dry formulations of the EU, but also to explain the different provisions, like with the customs evaluation, for example, when we explain what is meant by the well-grounded doubt, and we have the possibility to ask additional documents. Even in the EU, this wording, this formulation exists at the level of the European Court of Justice practice, so it is not included in the legislation. But we need to take in account this Soviet heritage about with the clearly defined provisions. We have decided to include this kind of footnotes to define the key notions for the customs evaluation at the level of the customs code. Thank you. Generally, I can fully agree with you. But the question about incorporation of guides was a separate question during the screening, and the European Commission clearly stated that the guides could not be incorporated into the customs legislation, either at the level of the law or bylaws. But in any case, we still have a lot of work to do together, and I am sure that your working group will continue its activities at the parliamentary level. I would like to wish you success, and this will be joint work with the Ministry of Finance, the State Customs Service of Ukraine, and our international partners. Thank you very much for finding opportunity to join us today. And dear colleagues, I'd like to sum up our discussion and this Euro integration process that we are undergoing at the moment has been covered once again. That was the mini Euro integration, how I call it. This is when we had the monitoring mission about the compliance with the Common Transit Convention. Back then, the mission analyzed several key aspects, namely legislation, IT solutions, which are applied, and whether it's in line with the tested European environment. Back then it was the NCTS, the preparedness of customs officers to use the rules, and the readiness of business to do the same. So we can scale up this on the customs Euro integration in general, and we will get the same messages that we've heard today from all our distinguished participants of the fourth panel. So the first one, it's legal level. This is the new customs code that we should adopt, and here I can agree with Tatiana Ostrikova that we need to develop high-quality bylaws for the implementation of this customs code. The second element, IT systems, covered by Vitanis today, that shall be finalized to make them to ensure their interoperability with the EU IT systems. And the third element, this is the institutional capacity of the State Customs Service to be able to implement the customs legislation, to enforce the customs legislation, and it will be also at the whole EU level, and to protect from the violations. And when it comes to this institutional capacity and enhancement and build-up, we have an ongoing reform, HR reform, re-attestation or recertification that will follow the selection of the new head of our service. So this is HR component, and the second component, which was mentioned both by Vitanis and Sharunas today, this is investigative powers and the possibility to have pretrial investigation when it comes to smuggling of goods. Apart from the fact that this is an opinion of the experts, these are also clear recommendations of the European Commission following the screening of Chapter 29. This is the enlargement report for 2024, and these are all official documents of the European Commission. These are also recommendations of the IMF and WCO. This is not only internal opinion of the State Customs Service, so this is also our task. And here I'd like to offer to finalize, to complete our fourth panel. Thank you very much for your participation. And now I'd like to offer you to get to final words. And here on the stage, we have all organizers and co-organizers of today's event. And first, I'd like to give floor to the representative of the Ministry of Finance, and then to Mr. Alishauskas, and we'll see what we'll have next. Thank you, Vladislav, for the given floor. And I was listening to the quality and quantity of bylaws about IT, and I'm also was thinking about the deadlines that we have for the political part. And today we already discussed that sometimes we do what we are afraid to do. So this is just our way forward. And we can speak about some postponed activities, but when it comes to the customs area, the customs service shall be ready from the first day after accession of Ukraine to the EU. When it comes to political opinions, we have different assessments. The speeded up accession in 2027 and 2030 was also is also mentioned. But we can do that everything possible for the Ukrainian customs service and Ukrainian economic operators to be ready. From some specific year. This is a very difficult task, taking into account the amount of work that we've discussed today. And but this is our mission, and as any public authority, we will not succeed without our economic operators, without business. And I would like to thank all of you for the path that we've already covered as a part of the current customs code, because we've proved with your activities and you proved with your actions that Ukraine is able to work and to act in the framework of the EU acquis. When it comes about statuses, certificates, and now we call this authorizations for AOs, authorizations for simplifications, just confirms the capacity of Ukraine as a state to demonstrate that Ukraine can use the rules of the civilized world, the rules of the EU. And we know that we can do marvelous things for 1 year, for example, to join the convention. But we should understand that there are huge efforts of a lot of people that stand behind these things. These are our public authorities, our economic operators. I'd like to say that actually every day you confirm the capacity of Ukraine to become an EU member state, to be a country who should take this place. And I would also like to thank the armed forces of Ukraine that make it possible for us to get together in such premises and to continue our work. And I'd like to say that the professional team that we have now in the Ministry of Finance, in the State Customs Service, the expert community, the business community, this is our golden fund that makes it possible to develop the new customs code. And we can also work with our economic operators as with our partners. I would like to thank the working group. We have the members of the working group who are present here today, and I'd like to thank Tatiana Ostrikova, who is the head of this working group. And I would like to thank you for this work. So this was a work of partners. Sometimes there were disputes, sometimes there were discussions, but it was important for us to understand how we can implement all these elements at the legislative level and not to lose our achievements, to preserve our progress. So I can say that we continue our way forward, we continue working on the customs code, we continue training, we continue learning, we remain open, and I hope that the activities of the of this working group of different associations and platforms will do everything possible for easier implementation of the new legislation. Thank you.
If you agree, to conclude, I would like to stress these points. Trusted traders should benefit from simplified procedures and further controls, but the key goal is mutual recognition with the EU, so that simplifications granted in one country are recognized in another. The experience with the NCTS should be extended to the development of EU-compliant IT systems based on the UCC-aligned legislation, with the systematic use of project management tools throughout the process. And you're right, the new customs code is the only first step. It must be followed by second legislation, and the third step must be implementation of related new IT systems. The capacity building is very important as well. But let me confirm that EU for PFM is ready to support the key activities related with the EU membership. Thank you.
Дякуємо, Вітяніс. І наостанок
Thank you, Vitanis. And now I would like to thank the hosts for the flawless organization of this event. It's been really comfortable and pleasant. We did not experience any technical issues. Many thanks to everyone. Thank you to interpreters who helped us to understand each other as well. And during today's forum, we noticed that both AO and the NCTS are effective tools which are widely spread as of now, and many thanks to everyone who contributed to the development of those programs, because indeed the application of those tools is a big step towards the EU. Also, many thanks to our dear participants who attended the meeting in person. We managed to meet face-to-face. Thank you very much also to online participants, and many thanks to EU for PFM project for your support of the event. Thank you, the Minister of Finance, for co-hosting this event. And now it's time for networking. Thank you for being very active. Thank you, Vladislav.